just to let everybody know, this is a public service announcement. Any kind of extra noises that you hear in the background that you're like, what the fuck is that? It's my dog. His name is Vito, and I'm not gonna just cage him up to do YouTube videos, so you're gonna hear him like suffering for air as he walks around. All right.
I'm glad you cleared that up. Suffering for air as he walks about.
Yeah. No, these dogs are just built to suffer. They honestly are, but he has a pretty decent life.
All right.
All right, well, I am the mid-grid masochist, and I have a special guest.
As I.
What name do you go by, sir?
I
I didn't think of that.
Suppose I'm the trough-born son.
Okay.
I'm drinking a trough-born son glass right now.
Straight from the trough you were born.
From which I reside. So boy, what are we reading here?
Boy, we got ourselves our nosleep Reddit. Looks like the publisher, I guess if you would like to call it that, the creator, Ants Woody. This was just posted like 13 hours ago, so it's fresh. This is a fresh one.
Nice.
So this is gonna be like public service announcement out front. This is probably gonna be mature content. So,
judging by the title that I'm looking at right now, I think that.
Yeah, go ahead, give us that title. Go ahead and just. I want to hear you roll it out.
My childhood friend living in his dad's attic brought to life his love doll, and now he was found dead. We don't know where the doll is.
Interesting. That is an interesting title. Very long title.
It's one hell of a run-on sentence.
Yeah.
I think it is.
And then.
I like it though. I mean, it sounds intriguing.
Right? When I seen that, I was like, this is right up the trough's alley.
Seems a bit covered in filth.
Well, would you like to start it off? How do you want to go about it? You want to read the content, the dialogue, however you'd like to do it. We could switch back and forth. I mean, it's a short story. It's not going to take super long to get through.
Why don't you kick us off? And
okay.
Do you want me to jump in on some dialogue?
Sure. Yeah.
All
right. Andy was a 30-something guy in your hometown that never had a girlfriend, never moved out of his parents' place, and worked the same burger flipping joint since high school. I was friends with him since elementary, giving our interests in creating art as well as TV cartoons and anime. My first memory of Andy was seeing him alone in the school parking lot a few hours after school closed. Coming from Pee Wee football from field next by, I think it should be the field next by.
Yeah.
I asked him what he was doing here. I'm just waiting for my parents to pick me up. That was probably what you should have said. Let's go ahead. Give it to me.
So I am this dude.
You're gonna be the quotations.
This 30-year-old gentleman. He's like your hometown deadbeat.
Yeah, let's see what he sounds like. Burger flipper.
Right on. Just waiting for my parents to pick me up,
he said, as he's on the brink of tears.
Were you here since school ended?
I was too young to understand or be really concerned. If anything, I was probably just purely curious.
They're just a little late. They do that sometimes.
Andy sat down on a stone bench with the name to some administrator or someone. This is a little roughly written.
Yeah, so there's some stumbles. So, but I mean, like, I guess so. There's like this kid hanging out, waiting there for the ride, and
like after a football game, on a bench, He's looking through he has a name. I don't know if that's in his hand or on a piece of paper. They don't really tell you, but we'll continue on here. Facing away from me, going through his backpack, digging out a notebook filled with sketches of Crash Bandicoot, Solid Snake, and zombies. That's a flashback error. That's a flashback error. Okay. The drawings themselves were really good considering we were both 8 at the time. I asked him if he had a PS1, to which he said,
Alright, excuse me. Quickly, so he's a 30-something-year-old guy. He's remembering Andy. I apologize. This makes more sense now. I missed the memory part. So we're both 8 at this time. Alright,
Okay.
so he's asking him if he has a PS1. Yeah, well, it's my little brother's. I watch him play it a lot.
I was so jealous at the time, given how my parents only let me and my sister play their old Atari. Given my parents were about to show up any minute to pick me up, I asked him if he wanted my parents to drop him off at his place so we could play PS1. He hesitated and said,
It's really messy. Is it okay if I come over to your place and hang out for a little bit before I call my parents?
I said sure. And when we went to my house and watched Cartoon Network and played Missile Command on my Atari.
Definitely not as cool as going and playing PS1.
No, but it's better than nothing. All right. He was very talented artist and had a quirky sense of humor that leaned heavily on references to the Tim and Eric show. When I finally visited his home a few years later, I understood why he was so self-conscious about his home life. You should probably... Well, go ahead. That's
You should probably keep your shoes on.
He told me as he opened the paint chip door to the worn down 3-story home, slowly engulfed by grass and trees. Inside the home, a dirt covered Labrador dog ran up to me while a pit bull tried to nose its way outside.
Shut the door, damn it!
A 400 pound
40
man.
man. He doesn't sound like that.
Oh.
Damn it.
A 4,000 pound man nested on a lazy boy shouted at me and Andy.
That's my dad.
Andy said at a casual whisper as he quickly pulled the dogs away and shut the door. The home itself was boarding on a hoarded territory. It was clean enough to walk through and sit down, but had weird piles of things like DVD cases and broken window AC units piled up. Andy and I played games like Soul Reaver and Max Payne on his brother's PS2, which he got working at the McDonald's a few miles away. So guy works at McDonald's. I mean, we're back in like the 90s here with Soul Reaver, Max Payne, PS2s.
Early 2000s or something,
right? Late 90s, early 2000s. Now you know what? I think you're right. I think it's probably closer to like when we graduated, like mid 2000s. Like 2005, somewhere around there, the PS3 came out. That was such a big deal.
I remember going and playing Duke Nukem at your house and we'd like do the cheat codes and have unlimited ammo and unlimited life. And then it was just, I think that was like a pretty big moment in my life to realize like what was the point in living forever.
What was his big saying? He was like,
"Oh yeah,
oh yeah," with the sunglasses. Yeah.
That was a really weird game. You could like. Would you like call sex lines on the payphones?
Yeah, you could go to the strip club and like beat the shit out of the strippers.
That was insane.
Yeah.
There was that and Perfect Dark and Resident Evil.
Oh yeah, I remember playing that.
Yeah, PS2 would have been like probably like early 2000s.
Probably. Upstairs, there was 3 bedrooms in total, but one of them was full of his mom's sewing materials and his dad's weightlifting equipment. both covered in dust, only occupying a room, making Andy and his older brother share a room. That's kind of messed up.
Dude, I gotta say too, a friend of ours, God rest his soul, but man, I remember the first time I went to his house, and he was like, I was really stoked on going to his house, and he's like, we can do pretty much anything you want as long as we don't like get blood on the carpet. My mom doesn't care. But then I got there, and I was like, there's no way she would notice if we got blood on the carpet. It was like exactly described as this, you know what I mean? And his dad was like, keep it down up there. And it was just like,
I've been in these with past work that I used to do. I've been in these environments, and they are pretty insane.
oh yeah, you know all about
That's for sure.
about the hoarders firsthand.
Yep.
It's terrifying stuff.
Do you want to take some content and I'll do some dialogue?
Sure.
All right.
So we were both covered in dust, occupying the room. So Andy and his older brother have to share a room, but they get the PS2. So Andy's older brother Eric, as well as Andy's older brother Eric, as well as Andy, a few years behind, worked at the local McDonald's a few miles down from their house. He would speak to Andy often in grunts or questions regarding his stuff. How do you speak in grunts?
I don't know, but that's like right up our alley, bro. I'm just saying.
Eric would go into the military right after high school. Andy's mom and I rarely saw because of her regular hospital stays due to cancer, and would pass away by the time Andy was 15. I never saw Andy really cry or get sad about his mom's death. He would regard her as a shadow of something he never really saw. Man, that's sad. Brutal.
Yeah.
Andy's dad was someone who I wouldn't necessarily call abusive, but always did the minimum in terms of parenting. When I moved out of that small town for college, Andy would continue working at the local McDonald's while only living with his dad in that rotting house. Man. After the pandemic, I lost my job and lost my apartment. I moved back home for a bit with my parents. Andy was one of the few people I liked from high school who still lived in town. After getting in contact with him, I found out he lived with his dad in that house. Still, when I visited his house, it was barely visible behind the vines and grass that swallowed it. His dad was now about 500 pounds. With true hoarder's nest of food containers that surrounded him, the dog somehow still alive but barely had enough energy to get up to the arrival of the guests.
Listen, dude, like, this person is familiar with hoarding, because nobody just calls it a nest of food containers. That's straight up somebody that has either been firsthand experience with that, or somebody that has helped people in that situation before. People don't just usually say nest, because that's like an in the industry kind of terminology for that situation.
Dude, nobody
this
knows
dude
it
might
better
be
than
living
you.
it firsthand.
Yeah,
Literally.
or he's been over there, you know, like,
Yeah.
I remember going over said buddy's house, and like, it wasn't up to that level, but it probably would have been at some point. But I remember seeing things like the first time I went over there when I was probably 10, and seeing those same things laying there when I was 17 with more stuff on top of them, you know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
But I mean,
Yep.
God, you know all about that with your former line of work. That's wild stuff. So dude lost his job, moves back town, goes to see what he's up to, and it's the same old shit.
His dad is getting bigger. So things aren't getting better, they're getting worse.
I wonder if he even feeds the dogs, or if the dogs just like live off of his like food containers surrounding him.
It's possible.
Does it say how many dogs he has?
No, I don't think it specifically stated how many. Guessing that there's usually I mean, it's definitely plural, but there's usually several whenever you're in a situation like this.
Yeah. So he goes back and visits. Says Andy was rail thin, greasy, and looked 50 at the age of 32. Ugh. He moved to the attic of his dad's house due to the accumulation of garbage that now filled his room. The attic was filled with sketches and oil paintings of lewd depictions of anime girls, Catwoman, and other things of sexual nature, all while reeking of an odor of certain nature. So it smells like he's just busting all over the place, making a mess, being a pig.
Swine-like.
So he's just like drawing his own corn.
Oh my. Oh my.
I've never done that.
Sacrilege.
Andy, besides from me being his best friend, was always a loner. He had crushes, but for some reason or another, he couldn't ever get into a serious relationship. Still, this scene took me back a bit. How lonely had Andy become after high school? He had been working at the local McDonald's for over 15 years now, only to what? Come home and draw corn and play video games? To be fair, drawings themselves were really good and a certain artistic quality. He could pursue a career in it if he tried. Andy seemed excited to show me something he called his magnum opus, his Aphrodite. Is it Aphrodite or Aphrodite? I think it's Aphrodite.
Aphrodite doll. Yeah.
Aphrodite doll. He opened up his crawl space and showed me something so uncanny.
Oh boy, here we go.
It was a life-size doll connected by screws and heat-dried clay.
Oh no.
I mean, homie can't get a real doll. He works at McDonald's.
Wow, man. Like, this is like stealing shit from like home ec clay, and like, how do you dry that yourself? You don't have a kiln to dry the clay.
Or it's like
that's
true.
Just
that.
over time
That's a
it
good
just gets
point.
like
Unless it's like
crusty.
air dry clay and then it gets wet for obvious reasons and it's not so dry. You can probably smell it. Also, good for him though, or he's insane. Like, the dude can't afford like a real doll, but you think that he would go to like get one of those blow up ones at Spencer's or something for like those gag.
Yeah,
ones.
they're not that expensive.
No, he could pay that off with
Not-
a couple hours.
not
of flipping
saying-
dipping
yeah.
fries.
Not saying from experience, but you know.
And this is and this dude is 32 years old, and this is his magnum opus.
Wow.
Magnum opus. Sorry.
Right.
Magnum opus of magic art. All right, so he's got a clay creature. Wow. So it was a life-size doll connected by screws and heat-dry clay, right? Parts of it
Yeah.
had a synthetic skin quality to it. It was dressed in a blue tube top and a black skirt, accentuating some of its more feminine qualities.
You made a sex doll? Are you keeping it in your crawl space? Okay. Just as I
was
that would be you.
about to continue and tell him how creepy it was, it got up. Wait. Just as I was about to continue and tell him how creepy it was, it got up on its own puppet eyes. It's worded a little real weird, but I guess the eyes came opening and closing separately. Wait, so this thing's like blinking at him?
Apparently.
Or did Homeboy grab it? It got like those weird doll eyes. The way its torso and arms swayed back and forth suggested it was very bottom heavy, with its feet being soldered to weight plates. He likes to stand up and have his time. As it wheeled towards Andy, I saw its back covered in wires and computer boards. Oh shit. Alright, this dude's beyond the level. I understand why he didn't go to Spencer's.
Right. It needs to be more personal for him. It's a personal thing.
All right.
Let me take this. I'm gonna go ahead and imagine what he sounds like.
Yeah, get in there.
Isn't it amazing? It's truly something every guy wishes for.
He's got a little, little grungel in his speak. I like it. As he swung, I don't know if that's a word. As he swung his arm around the robot's waist, bringing it closer, his arm swinging limply for a moment before grabbing Andy's hip with one arm and rubbing his chest with the other. The whole action suggested it was slowly registering the movements of Andy and replying appropriately to the action. Bro, why are you living in your dad's attic? Make your money, sir.
Oh, man. So it looks like his friend replies with, "Well, I don't know. Are you planning on selling this to some company or something?"
That's what I'm saying. I didn't know whether to laugh or gasp in terror and disgust. I guess in the end, all I cared about was Andy's well-being.
I don't know. It took me a while to get the AI right. Although the skeleton and muscle and skin synthetics were easy to come by in comparison. To be honest, I never really thought about selling it.
He carefully reached to the back of its head, brushing off the hair sewed onto its head, flicking some switches before it slowly crouched into fetal position.
Look, I'm gonna be honest with you, Andy. This is pretty weird. I don't like you living here still. Have you ever tried going out of the country? Have you ever had a relationship with anyone else besides family?
I came off sounding more frustrated than concerned, which must have sent Andy aback. Before I could let him reply, I quickly and calmly said,
Look, I just care about you, man. You're a talented guy. You can move to a better place than here. You can impress a real woman if you just talk to people.
He frowned and rolled his Aphrodite doll back into the crawl space in a rather hastily manner that suggested he was embarrassed in ever showing it.
Yeah, okay.
He was clearly frustrated, and I didn't want to upset him.
I'm not saying it's bad. It takes a lot of skill to make that. I'm just worried about you, is all.
He covered his mouth with his hand, dragging it down across the stubbed chin in motion of exhaustion.
I think you should leave.
He's not happy about what he's saying. So
No.
Homeboy is like programming AI. This doll's like alive. I know that they're already building that kind of stuff, but if Homeboy can make this in his own house, man, I mean, he could be making money.
Yeah, I just don't. The way that they explained it, I just don't think that it's what you think it looks like. I think it's like,
Oh, I'm sure it's grotesque. I'm just saying it's responding.
yeah,
to stuff.
like this is like something from a horror film.
But I also
sure.
see it like he like puts his arm around it, and it's like rubbing his chest, or it's just like like windshield wiper, like really stiff, creepy, like something out of well, I mean his name's Andy, but what's that kid Sid that lives across from Andy in Toy Story, like those freak show put together toys.
Oh yeah, the Misfits. Yeah.
Yeah, like eyes aren't the right size and shit.
Oh no, totally.
Maybe missing one. He said it was made out of like clay and something
Dried
else.
clay. Yeah.
Ugh.
Well, there was like computer boards and clay and like synthetic stretched skin of some type.
Thing is
Yeah,
like
it's-
unless the dude stole a bunch of the stuff to build it, he put some money into it.
Yeah, I mean it's his thing. Like everybody should have their own right to privacy, right? I mean, as long as you're
Sure.
not hurting anybody.
Yeah, get in there.
Yeah, it's definitely weird.
So he's kicking him out. I looked around
Looks like
in
it.
his filth and squalor, filth and squalor. I love it. With his absent father, who probably stopped caring long ago, 2 floors down. I didn't want to push too much on Andy right there. I told myself I would invite him out of his home over time and get him used to the outside world while not completely throwing away his talents.
All right, but I want you to take my number. Feel free to call me at any time.
I left the house that nature was slowly swallowing. I would get caught in the momentum of life. I would work in a warehouse an hour's drive away. I would meet my now current wife, who would give me my son. Unfortunately, I wouldn't have time to call Andy, and he nor me. I wouldn't know how he turned out until I got a call from a police department at my hometown. That escalated quickly.
Uh-oh.
The police had told me that Andy was found dead in his room in the attic, starved and head crushed with exceptional force, as well as having been assaulted in a manner that which the detectives had wanted to remain hidden for the investigation.
Wow.
The reason why they were talking to me was because, according to Andy's phone and social media records, I was the last person Andy talked to before his disappearance.
How long ago was that?
I don't
Didn't he say
know.
it was years? He said it was years before.
Yeah, that's what I was saying.
They grew
Like,
apart.
the dude went, found a wife in town, got married, even if it was like a quick hookup and he got her pregnant. I mean, even if he
It's still a long time.
even if they hooked up, got her pregnant, and they had a kid, this is at least 9 months later. So no matter what, it's really weird.
Yeah.
Like all in one day. So I think this has been like a while. I think the way he describes it suggests that there's like some years in between there.
Yeah, for sure.
So that's you. So
have you talked to his father?
I asked the detective. She sighed.
Well, that's the thing. His father was killed by head trauma. 2 dogs also found in the home, one crushed to death, and the other one by starvation. We were just calling you to get a clearer picture.
I told her everything. The squalor, the drawings, the doll. She seemed confused and frustrated by mention of the doll, as if I was a child making up a story for attention. I asked her,
Well, it should be in the crawl space in the attic. Did you look there? No, we didn't find anything. It could have been just one of those things he ordered online and threw out later.
She asked if I knew anything else before, to which I said no. We both ended the call with our thank yous and let me know if anything comes up. I wish there was a detective... I wish there was a definitive end to this story. But even if I don't believe the reports that it was some family dispute gone wrong according to the police reports, I wish I could go to the house to see if they missed anything. But after the investigation ended, they had condemned the house and bulldozed to the ground. I did get a call, Eric. Oh.
Probably from Eric, I'm guessing.
yeah.
I did get a call from Eric.
Yeah. I did get a call from Eric, Andy's older brother in the military. He had been given the sketchbook by Andy. He admitted that him and Andy were never close and that I should have the sketchbook since I was his only friend. The sketchbook, amazingly, was the one I saw Andy with the first day I met him. Faded drawings of Crash Bandicoot, Solid Snake, and zombies. It was also stuffed folded pieces of graph paper with newer writings. Some of them looked familiar, one of which was schematics of the Aphrodite doll, as well as another schematic dated Aphrodite dolls version 2, 3, and 4. Dates just days after the last time I saw Andy.
Wow.
So dude was either planning to make 3 more, or he did.
Yeah, well, he was at least making some kind of schematic for the next versions. It's basically showing he was absolutely obsessed with this. I mean, it was all consuming.
I like the idea that he at least made a couple more, and that was the takeover. Because like, if he, I mean, like the dad's 500 pounds. He probably doesn't get around that well, so he probably got bashed over the head or something while he's sitting there. So all they had to really do was take out Andy. The dogs are weak, so they're not going to take this thing down.
No.
Probably. And the other one was starving, so man, there was probably more than one doll involved. It's interesting though, because it's like, where are they now? I wonder if we'll get a follow-up. When was this posted? 13 hours ago.
Yeah, this is a fresh one. I really like the story overall. The person that wrote it, I think, should have did a little bit of better proofreading, but at the same time, when I write stuff down really quickly, I don't look at that. I'm just trying to get the idea out, and I'm sure that's what he was doing.
Yeah, and I mean, like, who knows? Maybe this is a true story. Because if you think about it, the most unlikely thing here, to me, isn't that the doll killed them. It's more so that this dude was capable of creating this doll, but then at the same time, like, it's not that crazy. I'm not sure how we get the mechanics and stuff, but I ain't no engineer. I don't know enough, so I think that it's interesting because, like, this is technically possible, and just because the doll's not there anymore doesn't mean the doll did it. Like,
somebody could have kicked in the door and murdered them and take the doll because they were like, oh look, I'm gonna have that for later.
What if it could be that, but what if, like, he was active on Discord or some forums and he was showing off his AI doll and it was a breakthrough and maybe a company came in and took it?
Sure. That's just like the guy that invented the engine that runs off of water.
There you go. Yeah, they're like,
surprisingly, he dies after that. Like,
that's going to be ours. Nobody's going to know. Nobody's going to really care. You guys didn't have much of a footprint. I think this is very interesting because it kind of goes, I mean, like, naturally, I think from the title, the dude assumes it's the doll.
Sure. Which makes you think that that's what it's going to be, yeah.
I'd be happier if it was the doll.
Yeah.
Often
it'd be more of an interesting story.
Yeah. But otherwise, it's just like some, normal thing, news headline.
Yeah. Well, what do you think, man? Let's wrap it up. I think it was pretty interesting. I think that it had a couple of flashbacks with the Crash Bandicoot and the Metal Gear Solid references in here. Yeah. Yeah. I thought it was pretty good. Yeah.
Definitely, dude. We got to keep an eye on this guy. Has he posted other?
I haven't done any like research as of yet, but I'll definitely look into it and see, because this is really set up for a prequel, or a second version, continuation, and yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing what happens if the doll is the suspect, or it could totally turn around and just be a murder case of weird proportion. But yeah, either way, I think it was pretty cool.
I hope there's a part 2. Looking at his page now, just looking from the last couple of weeks, which I don't know how often he would do this anyhow, but like, I don't see any other stories. So like, you never know. I hope there's a follow-up.
All right, well, appreciate the Trough-Born Son hanging out with us and going through this story, r/nosleep. It was pretty good. Looking for a part 2 coming up here. Hope you have fun, and we will see you next time on the Mid-Grid Masochist.
Satellite.